Hello, hello. Yin 30, so we'll start straight away in a malasana. So you might want a block. If you have tennis ball or spiky balls for the end, that might come handy if you want to explore. We're going to do something a little bit different, so maybe that's going to be something you want to play with. And for your squat, you can come top of the mat or wherever. I'm just showing from there so that you can see me a bit better. You probably want to have your feet slightly, or toes slightly open towards the side, just to make it easy on the knees. And because you might not be warm, I mean, it's evening, so hopefully it's not just like straight up in the morning. For some people who haven't traveled much to Asia and are way too used to chairs, that might be a little bit difficult, so you might want to be using a block on the high setting, low setting, or any, I don't know, cushion or anything you might need, foam roller or anything. Otherwise, this is just a great pose to work on liver, kidneys not so much, urinary bladder, and it's quite good for digesting, helps a little bit, relieving wind, good for the hips. So we'll just let open a little bit. You can rest your arms on your knees like so, and you want to make sure that you have your feet flat if your feet are not flat, if you're a little bit too tight, and you want to get either a blanket or a second mat if you have. Otherwise, it might be easier to show you just like this. You can use your own mat, rolled up or folded a few times, and that comes handy for your heels. So you might need to fold it many times. Just see how much you need, but ideally over time it's to be able to almost reach your buttocks to the floor. You can rest your arms, and maybe if you feel like a little sway, you want to watch your knees, but it's very good to strengthen the ankles. You're also stretching into a little bit the sole of the feet, the ankles, the knees, the hips get worked out, quite like this one. You can, if you've had the chance in some other life to travel to Asia, they don't use chairs so much, and it's pretty good. You can see people waiting or chatting down the street, having tea, just sitting like so. It's very good for the lower back, obviously very good for the hips, and you can stay there for quite some time, but we're not going to stay for too long. I know it's a little bit hard for a lot of people, but it's it's a really good one. It's quite relaxing actually. See, I've got my arms rested here, so it kind of also, by doing so, helps to kind of like pull in the back and keep the spine a bit straight. So it's not only stretching in the lower back, but also in the middle of the back and upper back to keep the spine straight, neck long. So it's very good. So you want to try to feel that lengthening of the spine, so tailbone going down, crown of the head right up. And it's a bit of a preparation for the hip work that we're going to be doing. So very slowly you can start to lean forward. You can press your hands into the floor to release. Leaning forward, pushing your feet into the floor, lifting your hips. Oh. So if you need, you can come onto your knees, hands, and just maybe stretch one leg out. You can come onto your toes and reach your heel back. So that might help to also stretch the sole of the foot. Release into the hips. Rocking back and forth a couple of times. Switching legs. And then we're going to come into a deer pose. So you want to be bringing your right knee forward and sit onto your right hip, and you're going to bring your right shin parallel to the short edge of the mat. Your right thigh is parallel to the long edge of the mat, also called 90-90. So finding that 90-degree angle shape, possibly also with your foot, long edge of the mat. So ankle 90-degree angle, knee 90-degree angle. You'll get your hips as well 90-degree angle. So meaning that your left thigh is parallel to the short edge of the mat, the knee as well. So you want to get your knee 90-degree angle. So it's left calf parallel to the long edge. Same for the foot. So we're getting an external rotation and an internal rotation at the same time on the hips. And you can either stay upright, or if you want a little bit more, if you have some more, you can maybe get a little bit of a twist and lean over your right leg. So if you have cushions, that might come handy, or maybe you can just lean all the way down. Maybe use your hands as a pillow, and you can explore different ways. So if you want a little bit more into work on the lever inside of the leg, you might be able to lean over your right leg. If you're way more flexible and you want to try more over the left leg, that's a bit of a tough one. You don't want to have your hips sort of wanting to lift, so that might be a little bit hard. Towards the right will be easiest, and you get a little bit more into the inside of the leg as you come over your right knee. So just find whatever works for you. As usual, maybe finding block cushions for the forehead, it's a good idea. And just linger there. So we get a little bit more into the gallbladder here as we also work on the outside of the leg. So this is quite a complete, gentle, depending on, again, the option that you choose. If you find that you can do a little bit more, and you just relax in there. As usual, we use the breath. So once you found your comfortable edge, you want to try to pull your belly sort of forward, lower ribs, as you inhale to lengthen into the spine. So really use that breath to lengthen, and then try with the exhale to really relax into the hips. So just sort of feeling that the hips are melting down into the mat so that you can really ease into the pose. Trying to notice how the breath helps you to go a little bit deeper into the pose. So trying to fine-tune the alignment as you expand on the inhale, getting some, maybe a little bit more squaring and length, and trying to really soften, ease into the pose as you exhale. And you can inhale, coming up nice and slow, pressing your hands into the floor to help you up. And we'll just swing your knees all the way around to take the other side. So you should be pretty much right into a good spot here. So I'll just adjust myself, but if you switch your knees around, just coming onto your left hip, it should be just about, again, 90. Oops, kicking the balls. And again, you want to be finding most probably the same edge that you had. So just check out maybe one hip a little bit tighter than the other. Who knows? That's what we do in our practice. We try to really notice if there's any difference between one side and the other. Sometimes I like to just get into a bit of a twist here, but you really want to watch your back. Might be a little bit tricky. I have now start to come to really know my body and know what I can do. But you really want to be gentle with that. And find that sweet spot, again, working with the breath. So we're just setting up for our next fun, explorative pose coming up for today. Something a little bit different than usual, to try to explore the body, the different parts of the body. So just ease into it, further working the hips. We continue warming up the hips and lower back. Maybe even middle or upper back if you a little bit more into a twist. we've got probably just about 1 more minute of exploration with the breath. And again, nice and slow on your next inhale, pushing your hands into the earth to help you up. And you can release with a few windshield wipers, hands behind your back. Just taking a few movements. Knees out, rolling onto your hips. So already trying to feel that stretch onto the outside of the hip, maybe even a little bit lower back. So this is kind of the move in which we're going to move, but we're going to try to really relax into it on our backs and go a little bit deeper. So again, possibly using maybe spiky balls, tennis ball, if that's something that appeals. So we're going to lie onto our back, finding reclined windshield wipers. So you can extend your arms out in T-shape for good stability. And you're going to keep your feet mat distance apart, exhaling both knees out to the right. And that might be your entry level, if that's enough for you. If you feel enough stretch into the lower back, the hips, you can stay there, or maybe you can go further if you can place your right foot on top of your knee, so you feel a bit more stretch into that front thigh, hip, and into the side waist as well. So again, as you inhale, see if you can feel the expansion, the lengthening into the spine. You might want to even wiggle your shoulders so that you feel a bit more lengthening into the spine. Exhale, you relax. So this is where maybe, if you want, you can play with a spiky ball or tennis ball. Most probably it could be on the left side of the spine here. So maybe just under the shoulder blade, or maybe the lower back, if you wanted to maybe stimulate a bit more the kidneys. That might be one here to play with, but you want to be careful because the lower back is already arched a little bit, so you might want to be quite gentle for that. But under the shoulder blade may be a good one, so trying to keep your legs, that's where it's maybe a little bit more tricky. So again, this is a bit of an exploration today. Just some suggestions, ideas for you to maybe explore as you come on your mat from time to time, if you do so. Hopefully you do. So if you want to get into some knots in the shoulders, like especially if you do a lot of computer work, sitting at a desk, even just phone or driving, I don't know. These days, I suppose, there's a lot of delivery stuff happening, so you might be a driver, or maybe just too much online stuff. So that's a good release, and you can even get up to really high up into between the shoulder blades, maybe even the neck. If you don't have a spiky ball, again, a tennis ball is quite good, and it would be just about, so there's a few different spiky balls you got to try. You can't see, but this one I can't squash. I don't really like this one. It's too hard. This is the real spiky ball. It's really hard, but in some instances it can be actually good. Most probably for buttocks and legs, the less sensitive parts, I should say. This one, which is bigger, sometimes is a bit big, but it's you can squash it. It's softer. That's actually quite nice, this one. Sometimes maybe a little bit big, so sometimes I prefer the smooth tennis ball because it kind of gets a bit more into the knots. It's not as uncomfortable as the hard spikes like this one, so you can really roll on it. I quite like it. And another thing you can do here, so that's maybe without using any of this, you might want to try to flatten your spine as much as possible. So trying to get both shoulder blades in contact with the floor, trying to keep your left knee as low as possible, and maybe bringing your left arm up as you inhale, so trying to really lengthen into that left side waist and ribs all the way up right under the armpit. Maybe bending into the elbow, you can bring your hand into the back of your neck, so that might help you to sort of pull a little bit into the neck, the upper back. Maybe you can do a little massage to the neck, that might be good. Exploring rolling the neck one side and the other. And if you want to go even a little bit deeper into some longer fascia that connect legs and the arms, you might even just get to work with the breath. So with your right hand, you might be grabbing your ribs and just play around, sort of pulling, just like if you wanted to twist a little bit. So you might lift a little bit with your left hand, inhaling, and as you exhale, see if you can release your left elbow, and you can pull with your right hand to sort of wrench the body a little bit more. So looking towards the left, and with your right hand, just see what you can feel. So you can maybe even dig your fingers into your almost backside, depending on your shoulder flexibility and how far you can reach. But the idea is to massage and pull along the ribs here. So that might be a bit of a good release. You might feel that it's also getting into some fascias that go towards the spine. So that's something you can explore, massaging into the neck. So just some ideas again to work towards. You can also do that in bed if you feel like a bit tight and just before going to sleep, getting some release. Just some ideas, so you can gently release your foot from on top of your knee, come back to neutral position, and most probably the best stretch here would be to get hold of your knees and just get a little hug so that you stretch into the lower back, getting the spine back to neutral position, just hugging your knees a couple of times so that you sort of rock your hips, work the spine, especially the lower back, so a bit more into a sort of rounding of the lower back to release. And then we'll take the other side, so feet mat distance apart, Arms out in T-shaped position. Exhaling, both knees out to the left. Maybe option 2, getting your foot on top of your knee. And again, just get a bit comfy here. Maybe work your shoulders up. So see if you can really lengthen into the front of the body, that right side, as you inhale. Maybe you can turn your head towards the right, twisting into the spine. You want to really try to let that right hip be quite heavy. Just letting it relax as you exhale so that it can sink down towards the floor. Again, if you want to play around with spiky tennis ball, getting into the upper back, so you can maybe swing your arm out to the side and up so that you feel the rolling onto the ball. So again, that might release between the shoulder blades where we often have some knots, and just notice as you do so how you can stretch. So the idea here is probably to, apart from the work of the spiky ball, is to also really get onto these intercostal fascias, working with the breath. So again, you might also deepen the work using your finger pads, getting to pull a little bit. So if you've never done that before, especially if you have back issues, you might want to go nice and gentle, at least for the first time. Just, exploring into helping the stretch. So a little bit different from a classic yin practice where you just find some stillness. So a little bit more of myofascial release here. A little bit of help, deeper work, and really working with the breath. Again, also moving your arm might help you to feel more stretch from under the armpit, under the ribs. So notice as you inhale, there's an expansion, and as you exhale and soften, you can really pull and feel a bit more stretch into the fascia. Relax that right hip down. Maybe massaging the neck as well. You might just want to do one thing at a time. If you feel this is enough to concentrate on one thing, maybe leaving the coordination of all things together for a later time. Once you are a little bit more used to all this. And just maybe taking another minute or so playing with this pose, and when you feel ready, you can again hug your knees into your chest for a moment and then just relax in Shavāsana, relaxing completely on your back, just trying to feel into that side body,